Hi guys, and welcome back to another video, or welcome if this is your first time here. My name is Dana, and as you can tell from the title down below, today I'm going to be doing a little bit of an end of year recap on how we liked / are liking, because we are finishing this up still, the Christian Light Education Language Arts 1. I did purchase this again for my soon-to-be first grader for the upcoming fall, so this is part of my curriculum choices for first grade. However, my soon-to-be second grader is finishing this up, so I'm at the point now where I can kind of give an end of the year review on this. But one of the things I am adding into this review that I did not in my previous video, and that is a review / small flip through of the actual Language Arts 1 teacher guide. I actually did not purchase the teacher guide the first time around when I was using Language Arts 1. However, I did get it this time as a way, honestly, to just better review it for you guys, as well as just seeing what it was all about, since I have not used a teacher guide before. I will go ahead and mention as well that in my last flip through video, when I was reviewing the Christian Light Education Learning to Read program, I shared in my last video there, if you saw my flip through, that the teacher guide was actually necessary in order to complete that curriculum. And there was a few things that I missed from that from the actual teacher guide that I am looking forward to utilizing / I'm already utilizing. So I really ended up loving that teacher guide. There's actually quite a few things that I was missing from it. So we're going to take a look at this to see if that is the same case for Language Arts 1. So I hope you guys do enjoy today's video. If you do, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and let's get into it. So Christian Light Education Language 1. We loved this / am loving this, and there is a good reason why we ended up purchasing it for my soon-to-be first grader. It is such a sound curriculum, and one of the telltale signs of when I am either ending a curriculum out or starting one is really, and I mentioned this in my last video, is really seeing the growth of your student or your child. And this is one of those things that has really provided just all those missing links that were missing from a previous curriculum. So I loved combining this with the Learning to Read program. It combines such a sound reading program / language arts. This is very similar to the Learning to Read, where it starts out very gentle. You don't even start Language Arts 1 till you are about halfway through Learning to Read, and then you add this. And I love that they do that, because this also starts very gently, but is also very valuable to the actual Learning to Read program. But as you can tell, it does start out very just soft and gentle, and then by the time you get to the 10th light unit, it of course is going to be much more advanced. But I love this curriculum, especially when it is paired with that Learning to Read. One thing that I did want to mention when it comes to the language arts specifically, and I don't think it's really specifically, I think it's just with the Christian Light Education curriculum in general, but when you are combining the Learning to Read with the Language Arts 1, it can be a lot of actual worksheets. So I do want to encourage you to not feel like you have to do full lessons every single day, or if the student has already mastered a concept, to not feel bad for either maybe skipping that one or crossing a few of the problems out. Because by the time they do the Learning to Read lessons, especially by the time they get to be halfway, then your lessons in the CLE Learning to Read are about 5 to 6 pages. Plus, the lessons out of here are another 2 to 3 pages. So that's a lot of worksheet material for the little years. In my opinion, at least that has been our experience. Now, I don't think it's a huge con for me personally, because I do it a little bit more gently, as far as not feeling like I have to complete a whole entire lesson for the day. We do kind of cross problems out and everything, like I've mentioned in multiple videos that I've done in the past, but it is so sound. And as I've also mentioned in a lot of my CLE videos, I much rather have all the extra practice and create such a sound understanding for a concept versus not enough at all, and they don't comprehend or retain any information. This curriculum is a mix of like spiral and mastery, but it is very good in actually creating that mastery type skill level when it comes to reading, language arts, and everything like that. So I wanted to mention that combining this with Learning to Read can be pretty intensive for the little years as far as the worksheets. So if your little ones, as I mentioned in my last flip through, if they're not into the workbooks and things like that, I would maybe look for a curriculum that combines both reading and language arts. And from my personal experience, the curriculums that I have looked at that have combined both language arts and reading, I think there's a couple out there that do a really good job, but they are a little bit more teacher intensive, where these, even though they're divided, it's more, I don't know, it's more separate, but it also flows together beautifully as far as the concepts they're learning. But also for me, choosing something that is very sound and thorough is just very important to me. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera around and we'll get into the flip through. So the Christian Light Education Language Arts 1, it does come in 10 different light units. And I've mentioned multiple times before on my channel that I actually love that they do this, because it provides the child just a really big sense of joy, and at least for my kiddos, of joy and just encouragement encouragement every time they complete a light unit. So after they complete a light unit, they will take their old one, they'll put it in the bin or a basket that we normally put all of our old units in, get another one, and just having the fresh, new, shiny kind of light unit ready to go is just something that really excites them. We've been doing something in our home, and I forgot to mention in my previous Christian light education videos that after they complete a light unit, we love doing show and tell evenings where they will take their light unit and kind of will make either cookies or a fun little dessert, and they will take all their light units that they finished for either that week or for the month depending, and they'll do a little show and tell for their daddy or for their grandparents or something like that, and they just love doing that. So I wanted to mention that as just a really fun way. It encourages the child and it makes them look forward to finishing something. I do love the fact that they do divide each little unit like this instead of having one big thick textbook, which would be overwhelming to the student because they would probably be like, oh, there's no way I'm going to do all of this work. But at the end of the year, somehow it all gets done, and it's just such an encouragement for them. So this is Language Arts 101, and as I mentioned previously, it starts very just gently and softly. It's going to have, of course, your list of contents. It's going to have your vowels, consonants, capital letters, things like that. So it starts very simple and basic. It's also going to have your notes to teacher and students, and this part here is the important part that they covered in this book. So this is why I was saying it might not be a huge necessity to get the teacher guide for this one specifically, but we'll still flip through that so you can kind of decide that on your own. But these symbols here, you're going to see all throughout the book, and all that is telling you as a teacher to kind of check that off before the student moves on. So for the contents in section 1, again, very simple. You're going to start out with your vowels and consonants, capital letters. Now, I have heard that people have been really successful with this, using it as a standalone language arts course. So as we're flipping through here, you can kind of decide whether or not that would work for you. But again, just color the vowel apples red, very simple. You're matching uppercase to lowercase letters, learning the short vowel sounds. This section down here in the bottom, which in the teacher guide, it will kind of tell you a little bit more about this, but in the bottom here, your capital letter, your match, and lowercase letter are kind of the 3 key words that you are going to be working on with your students. So you're just going to tell them like what is matching, what's the capital letter, what's the lowercase letter. Instead of uppercase and lowercase, they're going to be calling it capital and things like that. Once you get to lesson 3, now by this point, since you have completed the reading program halfway through, it's going to have you match the sentence with the picture. So just as a heads up, if your child will not be able to read sentences yet, or this part here, then they're not ready for this part. But do keep that in mind as you're kind of looking at this for a standalone curriculum if you wanted to do that. And then here's your 3 words that you would go over with your students. What are sentences, the words, and then the word right. Another thing to know about all 10 of the light units, and this is with CLE in general, but every single unit will have a light unit test in it. So typically before you begin the program, you're just going to tear that out of the middle of the book. If your state requires testing, a lot of people will tear these out, and put them in little folders to have them on hand just as kind of like a portfolio to keep for their student. Our state does not require testing, and to be honest, if my kiddos have already mastered the concept and I feel like they have a lot of security in the concepts, I don't feel the testing is an actual necessity for me, because I am sitting down with them on a daily basis and walking through the lesson with them, so I know kind of what they're needing help with and things like that. So I actually don't do the test, believe it or not, but I also I'm not in a state that requires it, so that's why I don't do that. Then you're going to have student self-checks. Now I do these as well. It really does kind of solidify everything they've learned in the whole book when they get to like their self-check. So I really love that. And then again, you have your light unit test in the back. And then in the back of all the light units, you're going to have your quizzes. Quizzes are, again, one of those things where if we need extra help and extra work and progress, then we will do the quizzes. But otherwise, we just stick to the lessons of each light unit and call it a day. So instead of actually flipping through every one, now I do have a designated video already on Language Arts 1, and I do flip through pretty much every single unit and give a rundown of every single one. But instead of doing that for this one, because I do have the teacher guide to go through, I wanted to give you, so we already looked at 101, so you know how it starts. So I thought I would also show you kind of what's inside 105, so you see what it looks like halfway through. So for 105, the main things that they're going to be doing in here, or at least focusing on, are the double O, EW blends, your root words, suffixes, and then the OU and OW, and then your suffix ending. So I'm really glad that they do it this way. They have a whole unit unit really designated to those two blends because they can really be challenging, especially when you are reading them in a book. Another thing I wanted to mention as well, if you're choosing not to do the teacher guide, that it does have the note to teacher that it says to begin language arts 105 with learning to read 109.10. So this will help you stay on track with what light units to do when. It's just not going to be laid out in detailed format like it is in the teacher guide. But I did want to mention that if you did want to do this without the actual language arts 1 teacher guide, you can use your learning to read teacher guide and it will tell you what lessons to do and everything. So I wanted to mention that. So you're going to go through a lot more contractions. Now they've introduced contractions in the previous light unit. You're going to be working on even more penmanship, so God made all things. And again, this is one of my biggest pros of this curriculum as well, same with the learning to read curriculum, is that they really require quite a bit of penmanship in both language arts and reading. So you don't have to buy an extra penmanship or extra handwriting course. So I love that aspect. And then you're going to be matching contractions. My son actually loves doing those. And you're going to write the words. And then by the time you get to lesson 3, you're going to be doing your root words and suffixes. So great program. It is very sound, but like I said, you doing this with the learning to read program, there is a lot of work to do. So again, don't feel bad if you need to break it up into different days. So if your little ones do need extra practice, they do actually offer the Language Arts 1 extra practice sheets. So if you're wanting to grab this to have on hand, it is pretty affordable, then you can just pick this up to have on your shelf for those times that you just need a little bit more extra practice. So I wanted to mention that they do have this available if you need that. Now I did pick this up, but I haven't actually had to use it yet. So I just have it available in case we do. So the actual Language Arts 1 teacher guide, one of my favorite things about the teacher guides that I really did miss when I first did CLE, and that is the actual layout and the actual almost schedule that they do with language arts. Now, since we are doing the Christian Light Education program for pretty much all of the subjects, the main core curriculum subjects anyway, I wish I would have actually gotten the teacher guides, and I will be honest and say that was a big mistake of mine. I think starting this curriculum was not getting, especially the learning to read teacher guide. So that's, hi baby, that's really going to have a lot of everything that you need in it as far as what to do, layout, especially as a first time homeschooler. So I will give you a brief rundown on how this works. It's very similar to the learning to read one where you have your scoring and grading. It will tell you kind of your creative writing, how to do light units, words to read, spelling, your symbols, that these symbols, as I mentioned before in the book, are just indicating that you as a teacher need to sign off on that before your student moves on. And it's going to give you some information on the quizzes, self-check, suggested lesson plans, how to do that. And I actually do like this as well. So this gives you a good idea for a homeschool teacher if you want to take this and tweak it, but it gives you an idea for kind of a lesson plan. So your first class session, begin class with reviewing concepts listed in the teacher's guide, use flashcards, charts, etc. Then you introduce new concepts. Then you illustrate new concepts on the board or with charts and flashcards, etc. Then you can discuss examples shown in the teaching box and in the light units. So I do like that they give a full-on class kind of rundown example of kind of how to do it. It is really, really useful if that's the route that you do want to go. And then one of my favorite things, this is my all-time favorite thing, honestly, is the outline of learning to read with language arts. This really is extremely beneficial if you are new to the program, almost a huge necessity if you're doing both language arts and learning to read together. So it's going to tell you exactly what lesson to coordinate with what, and I love that they do that. Even your learning to read sight words that you're going to be working on, your keywords that you're going to be learning. So in the language arts, as I showed you, instead of having like an actual learning to read sight word for the day, you're going to have keywords that you're going to be teaching your students. So what is a period? What are sentences? What are words? What's the word right mean? What's the word or mean? And I love that they do that. And this actual outline of everything together is amazing. I did wish I had this. Sorry for the noise. I did wish that I had this the first time around because it is, again, really, really incredible. And then also like the actual concepts you're going to be learning, like these are the blends you're going to be learning for that lesson. This is, you know, I really love how they do this. So I would almost really highly recommend getting the teacher guides, even though, let me show you here really quick. so much for being here and for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed seeing a little bit more about what the curriculum was about, and I hope that it helped you in deciding what curriculum to choose for your family. My next flip throughs are going to be on the second grade curriculum. So until then, I hope you guys have a great day, whatever you're doing, and God bless. Bye.